What's up, everyone? I'm here today with a video that is a little bit special to me because it is of my second track day ever, but it's not your typical track day. This event was hosted by McLaren San Francisco. Being hosted by McLaren, you can imagine that there were some very special cars at this event. And McLaren hired a videographer named Tadashi to actually capture some of the sights and sounds, which he did better than I ever possibly could. And with his permission and with McLaren San Francisco's permission, I am going to include some of that footage here because I actually captured some similar scenes from a different angle, in some cases behind the wheel of my own car. So this video is going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge. I really want to share the aspects of this day that made it unique, given that it was a whole bunch of McLarens at the track. The fact that it is also my second track day ever, I want to give some tips or insights into what that meant for me in particular. I'm going to use the chapters for this video. Feel free to browse around. Some of it will be media, some of it will be track specific. I'll show you a hot lap. I am by no means an expert of this track after one day, and I will point out some of the issues, but really it was a wonderful experience and I just wanted to share it. Before we get into it, I definitely need to give a shout out to and say thank you to all of the people at McLaren San Francisco, Naveen, Dan, Nate, Tristan, everybody that made this event possible. Tadashi for capturing the event and letting me share some of his footage here. Thank you to everyone, always appreciate it, and I will see you at the next event. Let's get into it. Thunderhill Raceway is in a city called Willows that is about 3 hours north of the Bay Area. Given that, it really makes sense to stay overnight the night before the track day, since the day of you have to get an early start. I had my reservations having never been there, but the consensus seemed to be that the Holiday Inn Express was the Four Seasons of Willows, and I can say it is a fantastic hotel, very clean, great parking area, well lit, absolutely safe, highly recommend it.
Hey babe,
Hi.
where are we going?
Thunderhill Raceway.
So from the hotel to the racetrack, it's only a short 10-minute drive. There's only one street in the main town. You make a right, you go over the freeway, you drive 10 minutes, and you're there. Now when you get to the track, you'll check in at the front gate, sign a waiver, and right after the main entrance, there is a gas station on site. It costs a little bit more than gas outside of the track, so if you're smart, you'll fill up before you leave the main city. I did have to refill at the track, and so it is really convenient to be able to do that there versus having to drive 20 minutes round trip to get fuel outside and come back. You'll notice as I pull up, the Senna GTR is being filmed coming off the truck. This is Tadashi at work, and here is a clip from his video. One of the cool things about the way that this event was organized is that McLaren San Francisco set up their own tent and brought out their own cars and really made it almost look like a dealership at the track, except client cars were integrated in the setup, and we basically drove to and from the track as if this were our pit area. highly unusual, but also very, very cool. So as you can see from some of the clips, it was an incredibly windy day here at Thunderhill. And this is the bit where I'm really just going to show media. If you care about the track and the lap, you can feel free to skip ahead. But this was just a very cool experience where we had multiple groups. There was a Porsche group, a McLaren group, and a luxury car group, all on track at the same time for a photo op. You can see all the people. They brought out a ladder, and it really was just like the ultimate cars and coffee on the main straight at Thunderhill. So I'm just including all of this footage because I think it's pretty epic, but it's not really here or there in terms of being informative. Alright, so while I show some footage of this Senna GTR and the other cars, let's talk a little bit about what it's like to drive Thunderhill as a novice. Having driven Sonoma, I will say that Thunderhill is a much more forgiving track. There is a lot more runoff area in general, so it's a lot harder to get yourself into serious trouble. But one thing I noticed actually driving the track under those conditions throughout the day is that I was pushing things much further than I would have been willing to risk it when I was driving Sonoma. I think part of that is getting familiar with doing track days in general, but my number one objective at Sonoma was to bring the car home in one piece, and I think throughout the day I kind of got the sense at this track that it was going to be easier to do that while also still testing the limits. I don't know that that's a actually mentally sound place to be in. There are elements of this track that could still potentially bite you. So one of the issues with the mindset of going in that this is a safer track is that I actually did not get track day insurance like I had at Sonoma. And so to not have that security blanket of coverage, but to also push the car harder than I did at Sonoma, just assumed a level of risk that I don't know that I intentionally prepared for going into this day. That being said, let's get into the hot laps. So this event was organized by Hooked on Driving, and quite frankly, they were outstanding. You were able to get an instructor in the car with you if you wanted. I did not actually elect to do that because I had my wife in the car as a passenger, but we also did a number of lead follow exercises. And here I am following a lead instructor on a hot lap, and the instructor is showing me the racing line. Okay, so we are entering turn 1, turning in, apex, tracking out, and turn 2 is a little bit tricky because it's a late apex. So he stays slightly to the right of center up until the apex at the cone here. And then this is a tricky corner because you see it kind of crests a hill, and then now you're losing the corner to the curve. It's off camber, so you need to get your braking done before you crest that little hill. Going up into the cyclone, it is a relatively sharp turn to the left and down, and then here we have another late apex. We want to stay a little bit off the center and then hit the corner there. These next bits are kind of straightforward. In general, one thing I need to work on is using more of the track or all of the track. This corner that we're coming into, I think turn 9, was a little bit tricky for me to get the braking right because the McLaren brakes amazingly well, and therefore you have to tell your mind to late brake, and then you still end up braking too early, but that's better than braking too late. Going into turn 11 here, pretty sharp, hug the corner, you can track out over the curbs. Long straight, same issue here that I had with the braking at turn 9. I was all over the place in terms of accelerating. I couldn't pick a clean spot. There weren't any clear markers to me, and I actually hit this one pretty well. Stopped to get the apex. There were a number of laps where I completely overshot that. And this is the end of the lap. Behind this instructor, he let me go past and play on my own. I think he was happy with how I was driving. And so now let's look at another hot lap with no instructor as the lead. So with respect to this hot lap, this was the third session of the day. I did not start recording using the GoPro until the third session, and so I was more familiar with this track at this point. You can see I'm actually tracking out reasonably well there into turn 1, much more so than at the start of the day. I'm using much more of the track at this point. And I still know, watching this video back, that I've got more room that I can push things in certain corners. But this was a pretty good lap for me. You can see I'm coming up on traffic. Overall, pretty happy with how smooth this part of the lap has gone. I believe I'm entering a passing zone in turn 6 through 8, and I think these cars let me go by. I could have hugged turn 10 much tighter. Same thing with 11. When you watch it back, you realize just how much more room you had than you were actually using. It's different when you're sitting behind the wheel. Let's see if I get the braking point right here. You can see the car just stops with a quickness. But I definitely had some laps where I went in way too hot and totally missed the correct braking point. It's a good thing there was a lot of runoff area there. And that's it. Alright, to close out this video, I just want to show one thing I got to do during the day that was really special, which was to get to go onto the track for a media lap behind Tadashi with a Senna and a 765 LT Spider on the track with me. I have the in-car footage using the GoPro, and I apologize for all the bugs on the windscreen, but you can see the end result that Tadashi put together at the end of this clip. And that about does it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed this recap as much as I enjoyed being there, and I will see you at the next one.